I'ma go get that Hellcat Rosecrans, bitch, but you already knew that.
Welcome to Boys in the Hood TV. Today we're gonna be discussing the life of Rosecrans Tone from the West Side Piru. Now, Tone was born Antonio Dotson in September of 1992 in Compton, California. He would be raised near 134th Street along with his siblings. Now, as a kid, Tone would attend Vanguard Middle School. Now, growing up in Compton, he would see a lot of violence in his neighborhood tied to the local gang, the West Side Piru. Now, although growing up in poverty and seeing a lot of gang violence, Tone still managed to not let the hood and poverty take away his joy as a kid. Growing up, he was known to always smile and crack jokes with family and friends. But things would all change for him once he and his older brother, Calvin, would start to attend Centennial High School. Now, Centennial High was a breeding ground for gang violence. It had a long history of violence, from shootings to fights throughout the decades. And going to this school, it would only be a matter of time before Antonio got his put on to the West Side Piru. And he will be representing that foe line from 134th Street. And Antonio would start going by Tiny West. Now, although he was known for smiling, he was not the one to be tested. He was known for getting his squabble on, and it was said that he put a lot of dudes on their pockets. And in 2006, his brother Calvin will be arrested and convicted and sentenced to over 20 years in prison. Now, with his brother locked up, this would affect Tone heavily. But Tone also would start finding himself getting in trouble with the law. And by 2011, he will be extremely active in the streets. And on April 29th, he will get arrested for 2 counts of robbery. Now, he will ultimately take a plea deal and get 1 robbery charge dismissed. But by August, he will be sentenced to 2 years in prison. Now, once he got out, he'll be back on the streets and he will start dabbling into rap music along with his homie, Mac Foe. And over the next several years, he would manage to stay out of the line of sight of the law while running the streets. Now, at some point in time, a collective of Pirus from Compton, from Campanella Park, and the West Side Pirus will come together to form Rosecrans Music Group. It will be different rappers from both sides as one unit, and Tone will be involved. Now, eventually, Antonio will start going by Rosecrans Tone. But at this point in time, Tone was still hustling in the streets, so rapping was not his main focal point. But by 2018, he will be arrested for being in possession of a firearm with a prior violent conviction. Now, with this new charge, he will be sentenced to 2 years in prison. Now, after spending some time in prison, he will be back out on the streets. Now, at this point in his life, Tone wanted to change. So he would start focusing on music a little bit more, and he would start dropping rap songs here and there, but still not taking it too seriously.
Stop playing on the gang I shoot it out. So many Crips niggas thought it was a movie house.
But by the end of 2020, Tone will start going extremely hard, focusing on his music. And this will lead to him dropping songs from left to right. He and his homie, named Rosecrans Hop Out, would link up a lot and start putting out music together. Now, with this new inspiration, Tone would even invest in building a home studio at his house so he would be able to record anytime he felt like it. Now, with Tone investing in his music, a lot of his homies were shocked to see him doing this. But for Tone, he knew music would help keep him away from the street life and more on a positive trajectory. But even with all the positive things going on for Tone, Compton was still the same old Compton and was still plagued with gang violence. But regardless of all of that, Tone would drop his debut album called Check In. Now, this album would feature artists like Jay Worthy and his homie, Rosecrans Hop Out. Now, feeling good after releasing this, Tone would hop right back into the studio, and in no time, he would finish recording a follow-up project. And this one will be called Unexpected and Respected. And he will release his first single off this album called Overlap.
Buzz down, what now? Usually got a bag, you ain't tough now.
Now, 2021 will be a good year for him. He will start building a buzz, not only around Compton, but also throughout the streets of LA. Now, over the next several months, Tone will drop more music, not slowing down, and even doing interviews with his homie Hop Out. And in October 2021, Tone dropped a new video called They Making Me Mad.
Why lie, I'm still poking, I'm vaccinated. Watch me dance like I'm solid, I'm activated.
But at the same time, the streets of Compton was heating up, and by December 2021, all hell would break loose. Now, at the time, the ongoing beef between the alliance called NWA, which stood for Nellas, West Side Pirus, and the Athens Park Bloods, versus the East Coast Crips. Now, this beef between NWA and the East Coast had been cooking for a long time, but it will all boil over after the Athens Park Bloods will kill an 8'9" East Coast Crip named Hellboy.
PD homicide detectives are on the scene right now. Investigators put a canopy over the teen's body. Air 7 captured footage of the car, which is riddled with bullet holes. LAPD tells Eyewitness News this was a car-to-car shooting. So far, there is no description of the suspect's car or their getaway.
Now, with the death of their homie, the East Coast Crips was out for blood and targeting anybody from any of their rival neighborhoods. But at the same time, Rosecrans Tone was still on his grind, gearing up for his newest EP, which he had planned on dropping on New Year's Day. Now, only a week after of Hellboy losing his life, the East Coast Crips will go on a string of shootings targeting their enemies, and their very first shooting would take place on December 6th. Now, one of their first targets would be members from South Los 13. Now, that night, the East Coast Crips would pull up to an RV parked on 116th Street. Inside was Jose Palma and Hector Cervantes, both from South Los. Both men were inside chilling, and only moments later, the East Coast Crips would slide through and let off a barrage of shots into that RV. Both men would be shot multiple times, and they would die from their wounds. Now, the following day, on December 7th, the East Coast Crips were back at it yet again. Now, this time, they would head over to the Athens Park Blood Hood on El Segundo Boulevard, targeting 3 Bloods at an Arco gas station. Now, with these multiple shootings, the police still had no suspects and had no clue if these shootings were connected whatsoever. Now, with all this drama going on, Rosecrans Tone was continuing his promo run and finishing up his final touches on his newest EP. He will also head to social media and announce his first single, which features Skilla Baby and AD, which he had planned on dropping on Christmas Eve. But sadly, did Tone know that death will be coming for him next. On December 14, 2021, Rosecrans Tone will be out and about, chopping it up with his homies like Zoe out in Compton. Now, later that evening, after making his runs, he will head back to the crib. Now, at around 5:40 p.m., Tone will be outside, standing in his driveway, talking to his landlord, who had come by to collect the rent money. Down the street was a black Mercedes-Benz SUV filled with the East Coast Crips inside, and they were riding through the neighborhood looking for some West Side Pirus to shoot. Now, as Tone continued talking to his landlord, that's when that black SUV would pull up, and the shooter would hop out with a chopper from the passenger seat and open fire. Tone would be hit multiple times, but in the midst of being shot, a second shooter would then hop out, emerging from the car, and start shooting at Tone again as he laid on the ground. And when all the smoke cleared, the landlord who was talking to Tone was also hit, but she was able to drive away and get help and call 911. But by the time the police arrived, they would find Rosecrans Tone unconscious on the ground with over 30 shots to his body. Sadly, he will be pronounced dead at the scene at the age of only 29 years old. Now, after word hit the street that Rosecrans Tone had been killed, only 3 hours later, his homies from the West Side Pirus will be out looking for some get back. Now, Piru members allegedly drove over to the 11-8 East Coast Crips hood on 1118 and Main Street, where they would spot a group of East Coast Crips inside a Mazda and open fire. They would shoot at the vehicle multiple times, and 23-year-old Deontay Wilkins will be shot and killed. Now, this violence will continue all the way into the new year. Now, after police began their investigation, nearly a year later, 7 individuals from the East Coast Crips will be arrested in connection with the shooting sprees, and 4 of the men will be charged in the murder of Rosecrans Tone,
including murder, attempted murder, assault, and possession of a firearm by a felon for the ambush shootings across Inglewood, LA, and Compton.
This level of violence anywhere at any time shocks the conscience and is completely unacceptable.
Now, all individuals involved will be found guilty of multiple counts of murder and attempted murder and sentenced to life in prison.
It bring another tone out, you know? So that's what I really like the music about, though. That's really my scoop on why I started rapping, how I started rapping, and why I will continue to rap, you know?
That's beautiful, bro.